Namaste, everyone. Welcome to the Charvak podcast. This is your host, Kushal Mehra. All right, today we're going to be talking about the state of vaccination in India. And to discuss that with me, I have Aashish Chandorkar. Ashish, thanks for coming on the podcast.
Thank you, Kushla, for inviting me again.
All right, so Ashish, I don't know actually where do we start from. So today's topic is kind of a hot topic, as we everybody knows nowadays in India. So first of all, let's talk a little bit about the journey of vaccination in India. So the entire narrative when it came to vaccines in India, if you ask me, has been very funny in a way. So we had this narrative 3-4 months back that वैक्सीन्स में दम नहीं है काइंड ऑफ अ थिंग भारत बायोटेक वाज क्या बोलते हैं उसको फोक्का वैक्सीन and from that I see the same people now from Bharat Biotech is a Poca vaccine. It is not a good vaccine. We don't know about AstraZeneca. To now going, why aren't you giving the vaccine to everybody, as if the government of India is going to take syringes in both hands and then come out and start jabbing people helter skelter, hey tu idhar aa kind of a thing. So first let us understand the vaccine coverage and the vaccine debate in India, then we'll get into the data, the stats, the performance and everything. So what do you make of that as of now?
Yeah, so see, I mean, as you rightly said, the opposition to vaccinate the vaccines being approved, from that point to opposition to actual vaccination speed has been super fast, right? So people first were worried about the fact that India was cutting corners. Basically, the challenge is that people who are commenting, and this includes both social media and the mainstream media, people have lost faith in institutions, or at least they publicly want to say that they've lost faith in institutions because they want to make it more a political point. Thought experiment. Let's say इस समय सरकार दूसरी होती, सपोज यूपीए की गवर्नमेंट होती, और उसी आईसीएमआर ने वही प्रोसेस फॉलो करते हुए वैक्सीन अप्रूव की होती फॉर भारत बायोटेक एंड फॉर लेट्स से फॉर सेरम इंस्टीट्यूट. Would people have still opposed it? The answer probably is no. I mean, in the sense of the folks who were opposing it in Jan, they probably wouldn't have opposed it then, right? So the point is that it has become, and it is quite possible that someone else would have opposed it simply because of the political nature of the game, right? The challenge in India is that people are trying to comment on things which is beyond their understanding. I don't know what the process of ICMR is, whether it is right or wrong. But the thing is, how else can I know? I mean, that is the apex body in India. If ICMR or Drug Controller General of India is doing something, you have to assume they are right. I mean, you cannot. There's no point in questioning, saying, "Arey, do week or try kar lo, 4 week or try kar lo." I mean, that logic doesn't work, irrespective of what the political framework in which you're operating. I think that is what has broken down in India, and unfortunately, that is being carried forward even now in terms of speed of vaccination. We can discuss this, but my hypothesis is that barring take a country which is more than say 1 crore in population. Don't look at countries which are sub 1 crore, but let's say 1 crore, which is even that is not a comparison for India, but chalo utna bhi le lo. No country apart from US, UK and India, and I'm leaving China because we don't know it's a black box, but barring US, UK and India, no country has had any control over on their vaccination plans, even at a 1 crore threshold, right? So you can keep arguing that we can do better, we can do this, we can do that, but I think we need to first appreciate that what we have already done is significant. It's phenomenal given our complexity and given our problems, some of which we will discuss, Kushal.
Yeah, so what I found fascinating is it's very simple. So as they say, there's a famous line, right? A lot of Americans use it. The proof of the pudding is in the eating, right? So once हाथ कंगन को आरसी क्या eventually हमें पता चल जाएगा. So the biggest data of whether the vaccines work or not always is real world data, right? So, and this is not about Bharat Biotech's Covaxin or AstraZeneca's Covishield or Pfizer or Moderna. It's very simple. Now a significant amount of doses of each and every vaccine. Even Bharat Biotech has I think now more than 1 crore jabs have been given, even when it comes to Covaxin now in India. So it's a significant number of vaccine doses. Now, whether the vaccines work or not, the biggest proof of that, whether it's AstraZeneca, whether it's Bharat Biotech, is the rate at which they perform and the rate at which the reinfection or mortality or those things work. And we all know now very comfortably that these vaccines work perfectly, because from the beginning, that at least in Mumbai, I know JJ Hospital was strictly only giving Covaxin only. They did not, they even right now JJ Hospital only gives Covaxin. It was like the trial for Covaxin, and JJ Hospital was dealing with that. So that was one way to prove each and everyone wrong. And I kind of understand, in India the biggest problem is that tribalism is so entrenched in our entire discourse that, even something you know as important as a vaccination and your vaccine, I mean, imagine, I don't get this mindset where people would want your own regional vaccine to fail because Modi ke time pe aaya. I don't get that mindset. I have always found that mindset to be very disturbing. But having said that, now let's get out of that mode. Now let us talk about, there are, so we have many points that we can debate when it comes to vaccination. So there are, broadly there are 4 or 5 points that people have mentioned. So let us start first with the pricing of the vaccination. So as we know, so there are two modes of pricing right now, currently in India. Both the vaccines that are available in the market are available either through private purchases at 250 rupees per jab, or you can go to a government authorized vaccination center and actually get the vaccine shot for free, like no cost attached. So there has been some criticism of the government stating that now we have realized that, oh, we need to ramp up our vaccinations. And in the case of Bharat Biotech, they had demanded 150 crore investment. I think the government of India has agreed to that investment, and they are ramping up their facilities. But then recently, Adar Poonawalla was saying, I need 3,000 crores to expand my vaccination program. So the criticism was that Adar Poonawalla would not need those 3,000 crores had the government let that price of vaccines to be sold at 250. Not they would not have kept a price cap of 250 rupees for the private market, and they could have kept a 250 rupees price for the government centers, even if you want to pay, and free in case of the below poverty line folks. So what do you have to say on that aspect first?
So I think I'll tell you the policy constraint. I don't know what the right answer there would have been, but let me tell you why we got where we have got, right? See, look at the case of the actual vaccination eligibility. We have a consideration that 45 plus age people can get vaccinated. I think all of us, you, me, people who are listening today, I think all of us know individuals who are not 45 years of age, but they've got themselves vaccinated. How? By claiming that they were frontline workers, right? And that's how they registered on the app, and they've actually got a certificate also. So now imagine this happening to the private market of vaccine. Let's say the government said that, okay, 10% of the vaccines can be sold in the private market. Now, what would have typically, I mean, the typical behavior in India is that the hospitals, anyway, there is a 10% wastage assumed in what's being produced, right? The government assumes that they can be up to 10% wastage. What would have happened would have been that part of that wastage and part of even they could have shown wastage higher, could have been diverted to the black market to say that, let whoever is paying, let us make money there. It's already happening in the sense that we know that people have already paid probably more for sub 45 years of age. Some people have done that. Now, I don't have a estimate on what that behavior would have been. I think one school of thought could be कि यार ठीक है 2 crore लोगों ने ये गड़बड़ की तो कर देने देते, like we could have, but that also wouldn't have helped serum per se, right? Because they would have actually black marketed the cheaper quantity of the cheaper price vaccine. The 10% of whatever quota you release is what serum would have got. Unfortunately, the behavior, the black marketing behavior would have helped neither serum nor the government in the algorithm which they have designed for the vaccination. So I think that was the policy consideration. Now, again, we can judge to say that, okay, this is being too conservative, etc. But the fact is that it is already happening in the event of the age criteria. Same could have happened in the event of pricing. So I think the government was worried that if that happens, then basically the genuine vaccination program could slow down. I think that was the consideration. I said that again, the answer to that is we haven't seen the numbers. Government का estimate होगा कि भी 5 crore लोग करेंगे और वो अच्छा नहीं है versus let's say 1 lakh लोग करेंगे, and that could have been permissible. So I think that math, unless we don't know why that decision was taken.
Yeah, but here's the point, right? So if the government was worried about not having enough, let's say, stock, the only reason the government could have capped it in a certain way or not, the point is today the government is facing a problem. Let us come on the age discussion later on, but the point is that today the government is facing a problem where we clearly have, whether we like it or not, we have a capacity constraint. One of the biggest reasons the government is not able to open up the 45 and above age criteria is that there is no other reason, there is a capacity constraint. So I don't understand why, the entire discourse is actually kind of hilarious, where the opposition says vaccine nahi hai and the government says vaccine to hai. Arey Baba, why can't first of all, the government should come out and say in a very honest and mature manner and ask each and every opposition party in this country, how the hell do you expect any country in the world to have a vaccination program that starts from 18 and above? You will have an entire collapse of the system. That should have been the government response. But the government, I don't know why discussions are the way they are in India, but they are. My point was not that. My point was, I think there's a very legitimate point being made by certain sectors where they say that if you would have left the private market option open for both Serum and Bharat Biotech, maybe we could have ramped up our production of vaccines much earlier, because we are anyways going to do it right now, because we have realized that we just can. See, why is the government ramping up the capacity now? If these two people were enough, then they don't need to ramp up the capacity, right? So that means the government just realized now that we have to ramp up the capacity. So if we would have maybe allowed these private players the option, I'm not saying sell it at 1,000 rupees, maybe in the open market they could have sold it at 500. Don't you think that would have helped them to ramp up the capacity earlier on than now?
See, Kushal, I think some of it is very, I think we are trying to optimize the third, fourth, fifth order problem here. Okay, let's look at the big picture. No vaccine for a virus has ever been created in a 1 year time frame, right? In the history of humankind. There are viruses out there for which there has been no vaccine for 30, 40 years and people die, including even the previous versions like swine flu, for example, or of course HIV, for example, that we know of. So the uncertainty around the vaccines, to say that it was high would be an understatement, right? I mean, the fact that humankind can crack a problem in a year, which for in the past instances has not been cracked for 30, 40 years also. I mean, the odds for that were obviously limited. The fact that 3, 4, 5 people cracked it is a superhuman effort and a superhuman possibility. Now, as far as funding is concerned, we can go one step back before going into the private market pricing. But one step back, I think another criticism is that, hey, USA paid 1 billion for R&D. Fair enough. The challenge in India was that, okay, I mean, India also paid for Bharat Biotech's R&D, right? That also wasn't by ICMR only. Maybe there's not a number on it, but obviously Bharat Biotech was handled by ICMR itself. So it's a very much an Indian indigenous vaccine per se, right? Now the question is that so the comparison that US paid for R&D and we did not is incorrect. I mean, we also paid for R&D and we actually got a working vaccine, which, by the way, now strangely people are saying that it is better than what AZ has produced, right? So
it is the best version. It's an inactivated virus. It is one of the best ones.
Yeah. So I think that also we need not really be guilty about, quote unquote, right, without really fully understanding the fact that we actually did it in the same time frame as the cash-rich R&D centers did. That is one part. The second part is the serum vaccines. First of all, see, they had orders not just from the government of India, but from various other countries also, right? Typically, a funding, I mean, Kushal, you run a business and you know this better than me. If you had an order book signed up, you can get funding based on future cash flows, right? By essentially saying that I will use the future cash flows to pay back the loan, etc. So I think, again, I'm not so sure that the real concern is 3,000 crores ka funding. I mean, first of all, 3,000 crores is not a big amount for someone like SII, right? I mean, it's a $3 billion group, probably more. But so to say, they can't invest 500 million more, I mean 400 million more, I think that doesn't sound very realistic. There could be genuine constraints that you don't have enough material, not enough manpower, not enough skills to make the vaccines at the pace that it is needed in India plus the world, right? So there are real world constraints, so this is like saying, can 9 women produce a kid in one month? The answer is no. I mean, it's not about throwing money only, right? There's a process to do something. Also, the uncertainty around it, Kushal. Now think about it this way. let's say the government had committed 3,000 crores, by the way, which was the entire collection of PM care funds, right? For example, just as a benchmark. And let's say the vaccine would have failed. तो फिर क्या होता? फिर लोग बोलते सूट बूट की सरकार किसी को दे दिया आपने 3,000 करोड़ रुपए, उसका कुछ नहीं हुआ. तो वो आज ही बोल रहे हैं, by the way, मतलब in the case of the PM cares fund, right? So post facto, now that the vaccines work, it is easy to say कि अरे आपने जब वैक्सीन वर्क कर रही थी तो आपने उसको 100 यूनिट क्यों बनाया, 1,000 यूनिट क्यों नहीं बनाया? Fair enough, that's like hindsight 2020. But when the vaccine was being developed with no precedence of a vaccine succeeding in a 1-year time frame of development, and then say that, okay, I will fund every money, every paisa that this company wants, and let's say it would have failed. Now the argument is that, okay, why did US do it then? Then why did US fund Pfizer and even BioNTech? I mean, in the sense it's a German company, but basically the funding came from the US, right? And which is why US today is reaping the benefit. See, the thing is, this is how that is how the political systems are different. I see US as I will call it a constitutional oligarchy, right? Where the money is everything. Money is the biggest driver. US did not even have a lockdown to that extent. I mean, President Trump actually paid for his presidency by that decision, by going after the pursuit of money, right? Effectively, his own voters died in big numbers. So they took a call that, okay, fine, and it's acceptable in US. I mean, $1 billion wasted. In this case, it was not wasted, but let's say $1 billion wasted in US is very different from $1 billion wasted in India, politically speaking, right? I mean, we are not in that framework. I mean, our mindset that. Then फिर वो सारा narrative आया था कि नहीं, इनके तो प्रधानमंत्री जी के तो 2 दोस्त हैं, फिर उनको पैसा दिया गया. All of that nonsense would have happened. Because a lot, I mean, it's not just the vaccines, right? You need syringes, you need glass bottles, you need labeling material, packaging material. I mean, who knows who would have supplied that, right? Or who's today supplying all of that. So I think so criticism number one in the sense of why did we not invest? Well, we invested to the extent that we can, and we got Bharat Biotech vaccine done. We did not invest in 1 billion vaccines upfront, knowing that we will need them, because that's a risk that's a risk reward equation, right? When you take a risk, you know that, okay, I will take a risk to a certain point. So I will take the risk to, like, even Serum, for example. Serum took the risk of 100 million doses. When they pre-produced doses, they said, okay, 100 million is what we will stop at, right? Which is what the stockpile India had at the start of the vaccination program. So every entity calculates risks which is palatable, which can be justified post facto. To say after the event कि any risk बहुत कम था, I think has got no real meaning. The decision in August when you were allocating money versus the criticism in March when the vaccine is live has got no real kind of meeting ground per se. So that is one part. Now to come to your question, कि भाई उनको फिर open market में, once it has been done, why is it's not being sold in open market? I think it's the same point which I mentioned, that I think the government was just worried. You can argue it's too conservative. That the challenge is that firstly, it would not have solved the public health problem. So, for example, India, as we know, has got about 10 crore salaried workers, right? Which is what I think we believe, and I think I also believe that once you vaccinate the salaried workers, the herd immunity may come into play, because it's the salaried workers who travel and who are the interface between the unorganized economy and the organized economy, right? So those salaried workers plus the gig workers, like, I mean, and kirana shop owners, etc. You can create 5-6 more categories. So let's say 15 crore people are like that, who are like the interface between the two parts of Indian lifestyle, like people who don't work and versus who are like old people versus kids, etc. And this is a lot which travels a lot and circulates. But the challenge is that even if you would have allowed, let's say, 1 crore doses to be sold in public market for a price, it wouldn't really have solved a pandemic problem, a public health problem. It is the same issue of approving a Pfizer or a Moderna. Pfizer and Moderna are not going to sell 50 crore vaccines in India. Even if they choose to come, they will sell 50 lakhs, 1 crore, 2 crores, whatever they feel is commercially lucrative for them, right? So I think the whole point of funding being tied to open market sales, I think, is not correct, because the funding could have been raised. First of all, the funding is not a big amount. 3,000 crore. I mean, I'm not imputing any motives here, but the Poonawalla group actually bought a NBFC in Feb of this year at 2,500 crores all cash deal. They bought Magma Financials, right? So money was not an issue. The fact is that the ROI on money could have been an issue, which is why they thought ki chalo I would buy a NBFC rather than investing more in a factory of vaccines, which is completely fine. It's a business prerogative. It's their decision. But it's not the quantum of money, Kushal. I think it's a fact that the risk proposition was such when the money was committed that no side could have gone all out into it without a cost to it. I think that's where we got it.
but I get, Ashish, I get your point, and that's a very valid point. But that is why having a private market option where you could have loosened the price a little bit would have given a little more incentive for the players. Look, just because he would have generated, let's say, 2 crore more vaccines, I think is not a fair argument, in my opinion, is because at least those 2 crore people would have been saved. The point is that at such a situation, we should try and, make life easier. So I'll give you an example now. So when we were initially, looking to have vaccines enter in India, I was 100% in support of the government of India, where the government did not allow Pfizer to get a shortcut. I think the government was 100% right. There is no way Pfizer should have been allowed. Bharat Biotech went through a certain process, AstraZeneca went through a certain process, and that's fine. But now at this stage, I think Sputnik has done a bridge trial and they've been approved, and now the government has come up with a recent announcement. I saw the press release where I think the requirement was even reduced to 100 people for the first week or something. There was another criteria added in the bridge trial, and they want to let more players come in. Now, my whole point is that, see, you can always say hindsight is 2020, but the point is that, it, at least in my case, my job is to ask the questions to the government. Otherwise, who the hell am I going to ask the questions to, right? I mean, what is the government there for? This is not like a one-way process, right? The government is ought to be asked questions. So what do you think of this entire process of approval of other vaccines also? Because this has also been a serious area of criticism where the government has been criticized.
So again, I don't know enough on this topic. I said this on Twitter also. Perhaps, I will go with the view of someone like an Anand Ranganathan who said that the government should have approved it. So maybe he understands the topic. If he says people like him think that government should have approved it, I will go with that. I have got no technical expertise to comment one way or the other. But again, I think we need to understand what is the role of a vaccine in the pandemic cushion. To your earlier point, when you say ki chalo, serum could have sold 1 crore in the open market and 1 crore people could have saved. See, I think this probably cuts into your other expertise on the philosophy side, right? See, the government is trying to take a moral view to say that we will first try to save not the people who can pay for vaccines, but the people who are the most vulnerable in terms of the categorization. Old people, 45 years old, comorbidity. Also supported by data. I mean, the mortality rate in that cohort is over 60 is 2.67%. Over 45 with comorbidity was also 2.5%. And I think the less than that was, 1% or something like that, 1 point something in the for the data available until the point the rules were set. So you can argue कि किसी को तो बचा लो, ठीक है, fair enough. That's one way of thinking. It's like the trolley problem, or maybe there are better examples in philosophy. But the government's view here was to save the most vulnerable lot. Should they contract COVID? Right, that is what the argument is. So it's a design principle of philosophy which has been applied here, and you can probably explain what those principles could be, or point A versus point B. On the and which is why the age criteria were established in the first place, right? And the comorbidity criteria, etc., were established in the first place. As I said, the funding, Kushal, it's again the funding. Okay, look at the pricing of the AZ vaccine in European Union. One of the ministers, I forget if it was a Dutch minister or a Belgian minister, but someone had tweeted wrongly by mistake the price which we should appreciate such people for creating transparency when not intended, but they paid $2.15, and I'll try and send you the link. You can include it in the YouTube comment, but they put $2.15 per dose as a vaccine, as a price for AZ. AZ also would have taken the cut on it before paying SII, right? I mean, it's their research basically. So the fact is that the controlled price that Serum is commanding is not very high. I mean, India is actually paying more than that, right? We are paying 250 and then 206 or whatever. So we actually paying the same price, $3 to start off, and then for the rest.
I think Serum gets 160 and 100 or 150, and the 90 or 100 rupees is for the hospitals.
Okay. So $2, let's say, what we are paying, which is not very far away from what EU was paying them, basically. I mean, what they would have got from EU, probably a little more only in India. So the pricing power, by the way, is also not. It's not like that. It's not a Pfizer vaccine which they are selling at $20, right? I mean, and they're able to get a price on $20. So I think those considerations are also there. I think we are in the territory of unknown unknowns here. We don't know what was the demand from Serum side on the quantity to be used in India versus exports versus open market. We also don't know whether it can happen tomorrow. I mean, the fact that the government may be waiting only for the moralistic view to get over, which is that to reach 33 crore vaccination by July, right? And say that we after that we open it up, we make it more competitive. So I think it could also be that the forward guidance is not available in this case, which we might get the guidance in the let's say in the next month or so once some of the other vaccines come into India, come into the play in the local market.
Yeah, and see, I'll give you my view as far as the other vaccines are concerned. I think my view and Anand's view was pretty much similar on that. Like I said, as far as Pfizer was concerned, 6 months ago, if Pfizer wanted a no trial entry in India, not happening. But now, after 6 months, we have real world data, right? With every vaccine, not just with Sputnik, with Pfizer, with Moderna, with Johnson and Johnson, and whatever the other vaccine is, we have real world data. It has been, see, always the argument is, we don't know how the vaccine would react on our own native population or our own people, right? Well, you have people of Indian origin who are pretty much the same genetic stock that are living in those countries where these vaccines have been administered, and we've seen the results are fine. And to say that it doesn't work right now is not prudent, in my opinion. It's impractical, and I think Anand was saying the same thing. And I think Anand is right. And look, the government has been open-minded. The government, see, I'll give this much to the government. They do things slightly late, and the cost is huge. Even a one-day, delay in something as magnanimous as this is significant. But the government has come around, and that's why that bridging trial requirement has also been kind of adjusted with that 100 people, 1 week requirement has been done. I mean, I don't know how many people read the press release. I mean, I went and actually read the press release. It was quite clear over there. They have adjusted a little bit. But the problem is now that it might be a little too late. And now we come into the crux of the issue. So there has been a lot of, demand from... So I know 2 states where the CMs, I don't know if I should call Delhi a state anymore. I mean, it's kind of insulting to states when you call Delhi a state. I'll just say Delhi. So the chief minister of Delhi and the chief minister of our state, Maharashtra, so they have been consistently writing to the Honorable Prime Minister of India that open up the vaccine, make it 18 and above, make it 18 and above. So here are the multiple scenarios, right? I would never agree to a scenario where you open up a vaccination program and the first shot should be always given to your frontline workers, healthcare workers, and your senior citizens. Totally on board with that. But then, okay, now you open it up for 45 and above. Now, here's my thing. So bear me out for a while. So the government must be having something in their mind, right? So if you open it up for 45 crores and above, so if I was to, let's say, now let me put that population chart so that people get a little bit of perspective as to what you and I are talking about. So this is our population pyramid, just so people get a idea. So we are looking at the age group of 45 and above, right? So this is 45 to 49. So even within the, oh my God, India is so populated. I mean, look at the percentages. So we have significant percentages of our population, even in the 45 and above age group. Now, here's my question. What is that ideal number that India is looking at? Because right now we are clocking an average of 30 lakhs a day, which is 3 million a day. We're getting there comfortably. So us average ke hisab se hum log around. See, people often confuse that, are we getting 3 million a day of a single jab to a new person, or are we getting it for the first and the second jab? I think it is 3 million single jab and 3.3 million single jab and the second jab for a new person. So I'm only looking at the single jab. So we can't give a single shot to more than 9 to 10 crore people. Now, the 45 and above age criteria, Aashish, can only be justified if we sustain this 3 million pace, say throughout April and throughout May. Then it can be justified, because you will have a subsequent increase of the second jab also coming, right? Another 1 to 10 days, 1 week to 10 days down the line, you will be having all these people who will add at least a 1.5 million pressure on the government. for the second jab also. But if we are saying that single और second jab मिला के हम 3 million करते रहेंगे, तो फिर तो ये 45 प्लस एज क्राइटेरिया तो मतलब कब खत्म होगा? That is my problem.
No, so okay, the target for till July. Let's look at some numbers, Kushal. Right. So we had a stock of about 100 million. I wrote this in the Bloomberg article. By the way, I mean, since my article was explaining the right match, none of the Indian media outlets indicated that. Usually they pick up Bloomberg articles, right? But I think very strangely, not a single Indian media outlet actually published it from Bloomberg, which I found a little, I mean, pretty strange, let's say. So we had a stock of 100 million vaccines to start off. Then the capacity for SII and Bharat Biotech is about roughly 66 million, roughly. Per month, right? And let's say it's not going to change until July for the sake of argument, for till June, let's say. So by end of the June, we would have had 66 into 6, which is 396 million plus 100 million, which is 496 million stock. We exported about export obligation is about 80 million overall. We have already done 65 right now. So let's say 80. So what we have for the domestic market is about 416 million available. Now, if you have to vaccinate 30, I mean, the vaccinations have to be 300 million by July. Let's say by June, say 250 million by June. We need 500 million doses, and we have 416. So there's a gap there for the population until June. So the idea was to ramp up the production in May and June to fill that gap, right? So it's a touch and go. I think we will get there. I think we can get there. There are real world constraints around how fast to increase capacity, all of that. So it is possible that instead of hitting 31st July, we hit 15th August, but we will get there. I don't see, I mean, there could be some delay, let's say, or a month's delay, say all of August, right? So it's not that big an issue. And I think that is a point at which you can also, and by the way, this doesn't include any great capacity expansion over and above the gap that we're looking at, right? So the gap can be filled by the current plans of SII in June and July. But of course, their capacity expansion is also going to be much higher than that, right? It's not just the gap which they're producing more starting next month, or at least starting June. Plus, you have Sputnik coming in, which definitely will have a decent volume. They are committing to 5 crores immediately through a combination of imports and whatever the first lot they produce in India. So I think by August, we may actually have about, let's say, few tens of millions vaccines extra, 60, 70 million potentially. And today, by the way, government has also announced an investment plan for the Bharat Biotech expansion. I don't know if you saw that just before the podcast.
Yeah. In Maharashtra, right? In Maharashtra, government has announced an expansion with what was that? Yeah, Hakin. But हाँ, मगर यार उसमें caveat ये है कि वो end of the year तक operational होगा ना?
नहीं, वो Hakin का है. So there are three expansions which they have funded. They are funding the Bharat Biotech's own expansion in Bangalore, which will immediately start producing more vaccines now in the next 2 months. There is a Bulandshahr facility which was also closed, I believe, which was not being used much. So there's some Bulandshahr factory which is also being deployed. There is, of course, the Haskell Institute, which is probably India's leading, vaccine research center before. I mean, in a state sense, like in the non-central bodies, it's the leading player in India. And then there is also a talk, I believe, which is not public, but someone had tweeted this yesterday from Chennai, was that one of the Chennai factories, which is lying idle for the last few years, that is also being looked at to be utilized by Bharat Biotech. Plus, there are some other states also, like Bengal Chemicals has got something in Bengal, I believe. So I think there are some other options also. Of course, what matters is what IPs Bharat Biotech willing to give away, and whether it's a technology transfer or whether it's a contract manufacturing. We don't know. I don't know any of that. It was only announced at 4 p.m. So I need to look at the details. But the point is that the vaccine numbers can be improved just between SII and Bharat Biotech, right? So my sense is that starting July, it should be possible to liberalize the criteria. It could even be possible June in an aggressive case, but certainly in July, we should be able to liberalize. What that is, I don't know. Whether it is a category-based criteria, like we were discussing, that can you vaccinate all salaried employees, or can you vaccinate all kirana walas and Ola and Uber drivers? I don't know what that criteria is going to be. But I think starting July, we can expand. I actually don't think there's much of a risk to this original 30 crore number. It can extend by a month, let's say, because of situational problems of vaccines. I mean, you can have a gross number which matches, but to allocate it to the right states and then to the right districts and to the right hospitals, that part can still be broken, right? I mean, it is possible that you have excess vaccine sitting in Tamil Nadu and there's a shortage in Pune, like it's happening right now. So I think that possibility is there. But I think in a month we should be, I mean, in an extra month we should be able to solve for that and even open up for more categories at some point in July potentially.
So then my question in that case is, we know for sure that by the end of May, for sure, we're going to have at least as much as double the production capacity of, I mean, I'm counting all the vaccines, different. You have Bharat Biotech, Sputnik, and AstraZeneca, all three. We're going to have literally what we have right now. So let's say we have right now a capacity to vaccinate 9 crore single shots, individuals in a month. By the end of May, it is going to be in a position where we can easily vaccinate 18 crore people in a month.
Correct.
Having that in mind, I think, I'm not saying you're obviously not a representative of the government. This is just you and I having a discussion. But I think then the government can take a risk, a calculated risk based on actual numbers of vaccines coming in, to maybe let go of a criteria. I'm not saying make it 18 and above. Maybe say from 1st of May, then the government can say, ha, bhaiya, at least either 30 and above, which would basically cover your entire working population, as pretty much your entire working population. Or maybe have a certain criteria where all registered companies, basically your working population gets vaccinated in May. I think my biggest concern is, which nobody is calculating in this entire scenario. I don't know why people refuse. I don't know why it is like, हम अपने आप को क्यों झूठ बोलते हैं इंडिया में, मुझे आज तक ये समझ नहीं पड़ा है. See, there is humongous vaccine hesitancy in India. Like a mother of all vaccine hesitancies are right now happening in front of our eyes. We have 12 crore senior citizens in India. Even as of today, we have not vaccinated more than 4 crore. And the senior citizen vaccination speed is very slow in India. So if they will never pick up, और यहाँ पे ऐसा हो जाए कि हम लोग 3 million, फिर next week हम लोग उसको 2 million कर देंगे, मगर वो फिर 3 million होगा क्योंकि second dose हो रहा है. That worries me. Every week on week, our number should go to from 3 million to 4 million because the first dose and second dose is happening. If it is sticking at 3 million, that's bad news. That means there is humongous vaccine hesitancy. Then it's only prudent that the government, loosens up the criteria, because we know we're going to have double the capacity by June. Then we should, loosen up in May. I think the government is going to do it. I don't know what your hunch is.
My hunch is it will be a little later, Kushal. So just to go back to your previous math, right? If you are looking at 9, so what you are saying is 3 million per day. So 30 into 3 is 90 million. 9 crore people are happening per month, right? अभी हमने 12 कर दी हैं, मतलब 11.5 कर दी हैं, let's say, right? So we have reached, single dose would be about 10 and a half, or let's say even 10 ले लो आप, just to be considered just as a round figure. And we still have 3.5 months to go, right? So effectively we will get to 30 single dose in, let's say, mid-June at the current speed, calculating from today, just on the conservative side. And then you would have needed 3 more months for the second dose, which can be collapsed into, say, 1.5 months, right? Which is what we are currently saying.
Yeah, ये है अपना data ना. Single dose 10 crore 27 lakhs है as of now. इसको मैं refresh ही कर देता हूँ, रुक जा. हाँ, 10 crore 28.
So unfortunately, the right data is on the MOHFW website and not on this dashboard.
I know, मगर ये कितना होएगा? 19-20 का फर्क होएगा और कितना होएगा?
हाँ, तो ठीक है. So basically, in the current, which is what I was saying, that in the current scheme of things, if nothing changes, if you're doing 3 million on a day average, right? First dose, second dose milake, we will get to the 30 crore mark. I mean, assuming, as you rightly said, there are people who are available to get vaccinated by if not July, end of August. And this doesn't account for any capacity expansion. So clearly that's not the case, because capacity will expand.
See, Aashish, I'm very sorry, but see, this is what scares me. Look at the vaccination numbers by age of 4.5 crores of above 60, and it's already 4.7 crores. This is what scares me.
Yeah, no, it's a problem, Kushal, definitely, right? I mean, see, on Twitter, I have been reading some really, heart-wrenching threads about how senior citizens have died not taking the vaccine, right? People who have not, and conversely, people who had taken the vaccine one dose, their severity was, again, I don't know if there's a causality there, but anecdotally, a lot of people are tweeting that, after taking the vaccine, I recovered, or the infection was not as severe, etc. Right? So, I mean, I hope they are right about that. So it's a problem. There's no doubt. So we have a contrary problem, right? We on the macro level, you can say vaccines are in short supply, but at the micro level, the centers are going empty in many cities, right?
Absolutely.
So it's a very hilarious problem in some ways to solve. That it's got both. I mean, both the sides are a problem. You on one hand you are arguing that we are not getting enough vaccines. On the other hand, the critics are. I mean, on the other hand, there are people who are not taking vaccines. The vaccines will get wasted beyond a point. So ये issue रहेगा, and which is why I'm saying this is supply demand match. In fact, I had done a tweet thread also on this, that this is a three level problem. So the first question is, does India have enough vaccines? The answer is at a macro level, yes. Thoda bahut, I think April month there could be some variation, but in general the answer is yes. Then are the vaccines reaching the right states? Now that algorithm needs to also, and we can come to that because you kind of raised this point earlier, so we'll come to that. So some states, again, I think that needs to be re-looked at, and potentially the government should also make the data public. Ki bhaiya, this is what we have given to each state, right? So that there's no this political bickering pure time ki bhai hame kam mila, hame zyada mila, all of that thing. The third thing is, are the states doing the right thing by giving the vaccine? Because once it reaches the state, then it is their job to distribute to different hospitals and districts and all of that, right? So is that distribution correct? Now, isme Kushal, the argument here has been that the states which have got more cases should get more vaccines. See, I'll tell you the fallacy behind that logic. See, vaccines are not a cure, right? Vaccine essentially is a process to slow down the severity of infection 60 days later. I mean, let's say 45 days later, 45 to 60 days later. If you take dose 1 today, your dose 2 will be whatever, 6 weeks down the line. And then it takes 2 more weeks for you to get the antibodies, right? So essentially, you're looking at minimum of 6 weeks, potentially 8 weeks, to get certain protection against the severity of the disease, not the disease itself. Now, with that logic, yadi cases aaj zyada hain, that doesn't, I mean, the problem being solved is a 60-day forward problem. It's not today's problem, right? So you can actually argue that the states which are actually having the highest rate of growth rather than the absolute cases should get more priority. But that also means that you're rewarding incompetence of the local government,
True.
right? True. If some state, just as Maharashtra is stabilized, right? Maharashtra is stabilized at 60,000 cases per day, roughly, give or take a little bit. But let's say some other, I mean, MP is growing still at 5-10%. So if you allocate more vaccines to MP, that's like saying कि अरे MP government ने कुछ किया नहीं, cases बढ़ते हैं 10% से, तो आपने उनको ज़्यादा vaccines दे दिया. So it's a little bit of a I actually don't know what is the right way to kind of solve that problem. But I think the number of cases is not the right metric today to look at the vaccines, because they solve a forward problem. They don't solve today's problem.
I actually agree with you. I don't think so. The number of cases is the right way of looking at it. I believe that the right method, if in my opinion, I think the next set of people that need to be vaccinated. Look, because in India, whether we like it or not, it's a double whammy, right? See, a lot of people say, oh, Kushal, you hyperventilate whenever there is a lockdown. I was like, because, you people do not hire poor people. You do not hire migrants. I'm sorry to say, people who keep telling me have cushy work from home jobs, with due respect to you, I'm not saying you guys don't contribute to the economy. You guys do. But you do not understand the mindset of a poor person. You don't hire them. I do. I deal with them. The fear I see in their eyes every time, the word lockdown is uttered. I see the fear in their eyes. That's why I hyperventilate. I mean, I live a comfortable life, right? Even if everything goes for a toss, I might still, have not a great lifestyle, but a decent life in the rest of the years of my life. But the point is, it's not about me. It is about the people that I hire, the people that I see and I work with. They are scared. So in my case, I would always say that if we were to open a criteria next, it will have to be people who work in those Kirana shops, who are Ola Uber drivers, who are Zomato workers, who are Swiggy workers, who are cab drivers, who work in factories like mine or small, 10 logo ki workshop. See, these are your people who use your overburdened public transport on a daily basis. If the government, India's vaccination, how can it be like the American vaccination strategy? यार मेरे को ये जो argument लोग देते हैं ना बार बार, but globally किधर नहीं हो? अरे globally first world country से compare करो, देखो इंडिया की सबसे बड़ी problem के हाल में, we pretend to be what we are not. We should stop pretending to be what we are not. When it comes to vaccine constraints, we always say, why are we pretending to be someone like a New Zealand which has 42 lakhs population? So when it comes to our vaccine strategy also, we should not pretend to be a United States of America, which has an abundance of resources and can vaccinate at a certain level like that. We should not, right? So we should go for the mixture of health and economy, because at the end of the day, look, no healthcare system in India, if shit hits the roof, there is no healthcare system that can handle it. We will have a collapse. So to avoid the collapse, see, I know neither you nor I can change this, but we have created platforms to have honest discussions because we love and care about our citizens and our country. We care about our people, right? The whole point is that if we vaccinated from May, look, whether we like it or not, यार rural India में social distancing हो सकती है यार. ये nonsense, every day people insult cities or like Mumbai. अरे देखो सब्जी मार्केट में भीड़ करी है. अबे कभी सब्जी खरीदी है क्या लाइफ में? कभी गया है क्या मार्केट में सब्जी खरीदने? कभी लोकल ट्रेन में बैठा है क्या? क्या मतलब बकवास चालू है यार? सोशल डिस्टेंसिंग करने को बोलते हैं बॉम्बे और दिल्ली में. अबे अंगड़ाई लो तो 4 लोगों को पंच मार दोगे यार हमारे शहरों में. क्या बकवास चालू है? सो इन सच ए सिनेरियो आदमी क्या करे? अपनी नौकरी को बचाए, अपने 10 रुपए सब्जी के बचाए कि क्या करे? सो इन दैट केस, लुक, आवर साइड, हाउ कैन वी गिव एन आर्गुमेंट दैट नोवेयर इन द अमेरिका आल्सो डिड नॉट ओपन अप इट्स क्राइटेरिया? अबे बाबा, अमेरिका की स्ट्रेटजी अलग होगी, हमको तो हमारा देखना पड़ेगा. सो व्हाई कांट वी वैक्सीनेट आवर वर्किंग क्लास व्हिच डेस्परेटली नीड्स इट? हमारी फैक्ट्रियां चलेंगी, हमारी लाइव्स बचेंगी, पैसा घूमेगा.
So I agree. I think I'm fine with the first pass which the government did to save the most vulnerable, which is fine, the 33 crores. I think beyond this, whenever the next set opens up, it need not be age driven. It could be either profession driven or it could be geography driven. So you can say that, and to make it less political, you can say that all cities which have got more than say 10 million in population, right, which is about 53 cities in 1 million in population, which is about 53 cities in India. You can have those cities eligible because anyway they are the economic powerhouses. Plus they are distributed across the country. तो कोई बीजेपी का होगा, कोई कांग्रेस का स्टेट होगा, का शहर होगा, कोई किसी और का होगा, right? Some regional party, etc. So you don't need to worry about the political implications of that. And I think 53 cities, if we can get it done, either geography wise or if it's profession, it will again be the same cities which will obviously have an uptake. So it's fine. But yes, I agree that in the next pass, rather than doing age, they can do a little bit more creative design for the new lot.
Yeah, now I want to go into another aspect. There's just so many things when it comes to the vaccination program, because you did touch upon it, in one of your passing comments. And this is something I know I have been speaking about a lot, is the vaccine efficacy or the efficiency of the vaccines itself. Because I think if this is a podcast about vaccination, it is a moral responsibility that you and I carry, that we have to talk about the safety data. Now, and again, ये मैं rant करने वाला हूँ, मैं तुझे बोलने दूंगा end में. But this is just a fact. The first wave, and I keep on saying this, is because this is the best way to convince people. First wave, we would be bombarded with news of, ASHA workers dying, cops dying, nurses dying, healthcare workers dying, doctors dying, all these frontline people in the firing line dying. Because we vaccinated all these people in our first batch of vaccinations, this second wave, which, a lot of people say it's even more severe. By the way, their words, not mine. I believe the first wave and the second wave are equally severe. It is just that we did not have the test kits to test sufficient people. So we are just shooting in the dark. But if their version is this wave is even harsher than the first wave, boy, the vaccinations work, because we are not bombarded with those news right now. Now, here's my thing, Ashish. A lot of times the entire discourse around vaccination is, you remember that old ad, "Meri kameez teri kameez se safed hai." So everybody is like, "Dekha, Pfizer mein 98% efficiency hai reinfection ka, Moderna mein 94% hai, AstraZeneca mein 86% hai." The only thing that matters is mortality को क्या होता है और severe reinfection के cases को क्या होता है और जिससे morbidity. And in that department, each and every vaccine does magic. So my point is that how do you think we can convince more people? Because I am really scared about the vaccine hesitancy in India, because whether we like it or not, the numbers are talking. The daily numbers, even within the age criteria, are talking. And I am really shit scared that around 8 crore Indian senior citizens have still not taken the vaccine. I don't know why they are not scared, but they should be, because they are in the firing line.
Yeah, again, there's also criticism that the government should have done more to, let's say, you know, remove the vaccine hesitancy. I actually don't know kaise hoga. I mean, point is, all the signaling, PM has taken the vaccine on camera. Uh, all opposition leaders have also done that, by the way, right? So, in fact, I retweeted almost every leader that I saw on my timeline taking a vaccine, right? Typically, all the role models have done that. Cricketers have done it. I mean, Ravi Shastri put a picture. A lot of people put their pictures, right? So, I think ऐसा तो नहीं है कि there is not enough, let's say, information available or public data available in terms of the important people of the country taking vaccines, right? So I think it's just maybe it's the younger lot, maybe it's the people in our age group who should. I mean, I shouldn't call myself young actually, but I mean the relatively younger lot. But if people in our age group who should convince the previous generation, right, that it is safe, etc., and they should have taken the parents like forcibly, quote unquote, for vaccination. So maybe it is that people have not taken it very, maybe there hasn't been enough push in the households. But I don't know if the government can solve this problem. I mean, if there's a hesitancy because of WhatsApp forward, I'm not sure what is the solution for that. Seems like the case though. I mean, as you rightly said, only 4 crores have taken vaccine over 60 age. So
Yeah, so in my opinion, I don't know what your take is. I think India has a very unique problem. So India has three kinds of people who have vaccine hesitancy. So so in the urban, rural, rich, poor, both classes, there are so number one is people who are really taken over completely by the WhatsApp forwards about वैक्सीन करने के बाद री-इन्फेक्शन होता है तो वैक्सीन क्यों लेना. दैट इज कैटेगरी ए. Category B is, and I'm not making this up, I have actually heard this. Certain religion will say this has pig lard. Certain religion will say, oh, we can't even kill bacteria. जो religion है वो समझ चुके होंगे मैं जिस religion की बात कर रहा हूँ. So if it is an inactivated virus, the word virus is used. This virus is bacteria. Our religion says we can't kill bacteria. We will not use it. So this is two. And the third, which I believe is the maximum in India, this is after reading a lot, I'm telling you, is COVID से डरते ही नहीं है लोग. इनका क्या करे जिनको कोविड से डर ही नहीं लगता.
This is true though, right? Like if you talk to people who are on WhatsApp, people, professionals like us, people have been talking about it so much. But if you really see, just step out. I mean, unfortunately, you can't step out right now in Maharashtra because there's a curfew. But let's say in March, when you stepped out, so ऐसा कुछ feeling नहीं था कि भाई. And by the way, cases were starting to explode in March itself, right? So it's not like it's something new. The first Pune lockdown, which happened on 3rd April, उसके पहले केसेस बढ़ रहे थे पुणे में. बट ऐसा मुझे लगा नहीं स्ट्रीट्स पे जाके कि अरे लोग people are like overtly worried about the fact that the cases were increasing. People were roaming about with no masks or chin masks and so on. So I think India also has this streak of कि ठीक है देखेंगे जब होगा तब देखा जाएगा, right? So it's not, people also have got that fatalistic kind of view sometimes कि when we get there we'll evaluate how to deal with it, but precaution नहीं लेंगे करके. I think there's also a case, Kushal. I think there's one issue which I see is that I think some people do not have enough information. That is also one lot. People who can take vaccinations, but so for example, like people who work in household, so household helps, drivers, etc. Right? I think the government should have promoted a walk-in much more. Actually, क्या हुआ कि जब launch हुआ, so the app thing became the primary driver of communication thing, right? I mean, although actually look at it, very few people have registered on the app, pre-registered. Most people have just walked in. If you look at the data that you were showing on the COVID dashboard, you will see that number of walk-ins is significantly higher than the number of app registrations. But I think the whole initial communication happened with respect to the app. You need to go to some app and register. I think that is where one of the challenges, because a lot of people probably did not know, or they hesitated because they thought they will not know how to run the app, right? And then how do I select a location and all of that. I think if walk-ins potentially, if there's a bigger signages in hospitals, local hospitals. There's actually a hospital very close to my house, like there's a PHC which is like a less than a kilometer, but there's no signage etc. there. I mean, we know because we live in the neighborhood, right? So we send some people there, but I think some of that is needed, like more visual signages for encouraging people to walk in. I think that part maybe is a missing trick which the government can do for all the states, or maybe the states can do themselves.
Yeah, but I also want to talk about the role of media. So again, I'm going to share a couple of pages with you. I mean, it's fascinating, right? It is the same information, by the way, but it is how you present the information, because this is very important. कि आप एक खबर को share कैसे करते हैं. So look at this, right? So this is how Ars Technica shares it. 99.992% of fully vaccinated people have dodged COVID, CDC data shows. So this is one way of presenting the news. Now look at the geniuses at Washington Post. It's just wordplay. I don't know why they do it. I mean, we know why they do it, but it's just disheartening if you ask me. Right now, CDC identifies small group of COVID-19 infections among fully vaccinated. But this is the article, right? But tweet देखना. So the point is कि tweet में ऐसे डरा देंगे कि 5,800 लोगों को फिर से कोविड हो गया कोविड की वैक्सीन लेने के बाद. ये नहीं बताएंगे कि 66 मिलियन में से 5,800 लोगों को कोविड हुआ सिर्फ.
77 million. It's even worse. I mean, in the sense, it's even better ratio wise.
The same thing is happening with this whole high blood clots ho jayenge. I mean, I don't know what nonsense is happening. There are 7 million Johnson and Johnson shots and 6 people have developed blood clots. ये कौन बेवकूफ गधे हैं जो कर रहे. और ऐसी सिचुएशन में यूरोप में कंट्रीज हैं. डेनमार्क ने एस्ट्राजेनेका को रोक दिया है. अमेरिका ने J&J को हॉल्ट कर दिया है. So what happens is when you have these kinds of news, floating around, people kind of start thinking, नहीं भाई हम तो वैक्सीन नहीं ले रहे हैं, हम मर गए, हमको कुछ हो गया. I mean, just look at the blood clot data. I just started cracking up when I heard this whole blood clot thing. I was like, ये क्या हो रहा है? And one of our common friends, Amit, Dr. Amit, had also written a beautiful article about it. But risk of blood clots को देख, J&J vaccine का risk of blood clots है 0.00001%. बर्थ कंट्रोल पिल से ब्लड क्लॉट्स होने के लिए 0.05%. और कोविड इन्फेक्शन से ब्लड क्लॉट्स होने का चांस है 16%. मगर और ये सीडीसी का डेटा है, बाय द वे. मतलब नोबडी इज पुलिंग डेटा आउट ऑफ देयर एस. The point is, what is happening? Why are people so hell-bent on making sure that people who are already scared should not take the vaccine because they will find one article every day which scares the shit out of them? I mean, recently, I think it was India Today that had said 37 doctors at Gangaram Hospital catch COVID again. अरे बाबा 600 डॉक्टर थे उसमें, 37 में से 2 सिर्फ हॉस्पिटल में माइल्ड इन्फेक्शन के लिए गए, बाकी तो घर पे बैठे. क्या तमाशा बना दिया है.
In fact, a senior doctor actually did that data, and I really appreciate the fact that he went and quoted that data, right? Because he said that look at the other way around. If there were 500 doctors, 500 में से 37 को फिर से हुआ. So essentially, your protection rate is close to about 93%, right? And even within that, there were 5 hospitalizations, and they all hopefully became okay after that. So it just shows that the hospitalization rate is 1%, the rehospitalization rate. And by the way, doctors will have the most severe exposure to the virus just by the profession, right? So other people may have it even better compared to that data, right? It may not even be 1% hospitalization rate because you may not actually get exposed to that much virus as viral load as the doctors do. And I think this is crucial. This is a challenge. So I'll give you an example of my article which I wrote in Bloomberg, right? So now, unfortunately, the titling by Bloomberg itself was not very good. They made it sound like India is exporting vaccines, so there's a shortage, which really wasn't my intention to.
Yeah, I actually wanted to ask you that question. Please talk about that. Let's bust the myth about this India exporting vaccines bit also. Please do that.
Yeah. So see, vaccines, there are 8 crore exports. We have done 6.5 crore exports, right? I mean, 8 crores is our obligation. So it's not that we would have. We would have gone any great speed. I mean, we have vaccinated about 12 crore jabs have been given. And we will reach 30 crores by July, as we discussed, right? 33 crores in that range. So 3 crores I mean, 6 crore exports or 8 crores exports, 4 crore more people wouldn't have made that much of a difference. The fact is that I mean, the vaccines, some of our vaccines will actually end up completely 100% inoculating some countries, right? Like Bhutan, for example, or companies like Dominica, or so we will actually end up vaccinating them fully, just by the grants that they've given, or the some of them are commercial sales also. Not everything is a grant. So, acha, by the way, because they were commercial sales, the obligation was always there. It's not that India, in the sense, Serum has gone ahead and done some contracting, right? Or they have some export obligations in respect to the COVAX alliance. So some of this export was anyway going to happen. Just that India packaged it in the right way to say that, okay, we are prioritizing the exports and not holding them in January. And India has done a good job of also diminishing exports, right? So we did a front-loaded exports before our own program kicked up in a big way. In any case, vaccines have a shelf life, so you cannot really hold on to vaccines for like months together, right? So what was available from the stock, we use that for exports, which is fine. You know, we were anyway not ramping up in Jan. If you see, our program had a very slow start. I mean, in January, right? The first 15 days were very, very slow for India. We only picked up in March when the criteria got opened up. So first 45 days were first 35, 48 days were quite slow for us. So exports had no reason. I mean, you can say that we could have saved 10 days in getting to a figure. Fine, you know, you can do that by increasing the capacity, production later on, right? So that's not, exports is not the reason why the program was slow in India at all. In fact, exports will give us a lot of leverage. Like, for example, so now that there's a argument going on, which like other Punawal also tweeted today, that the US is holding on to some raw materials or some components on their war, based on a war act, right? They've applied some war emergency act to not export, let some company export components to India. I think Covaxin is also held up because of that, because of they import something from Kansas, from a company called Vax Pro or something like that. So they have some chemical which comes from there. And the Covax or the Novavax vaccine, which in India is branded as Covavax by Serum, they are not being able to go live, although they were supposed to go live. Initially they said May, then they said September, but doesn't look like now. So that is also held up for the same reason, that US is not letting exports. Now imagine that versus, so now when India petitioned in WTO that we should have there should be a suspension of IP rights for a limited period and for limited obligations. We've got a lot of support for that, right? When India and South Africa made this joint petition, I mean, why did we get the support over US? We are getting the support because that's what the vaccine diplomacy helped you on, right? In terms of the countries coming forward and saying, yeah, fine, this makes sense, right? So I think exports had their own, importance and their their own place in our general diplomacy. It has not slowed down the coverage at all. Exports were front loaded, and I think overall we will reap the benefit of that in terms of our relationships with the rest of the world in multilateral forums.
Yeah. Okay. Now, let me just see what questions we have. So, Tanmay has said, I was going gaga over India's improvement, but I was really disheartened looking at the video of a daughter crying her heart out in front of the media in a Jharkhand hospital due to lack of attention by the doctors. I don't know what this case is, but I mean, Tanmay, I can tell you one thing. I mean, you can always find these tragic cases in India even before COVID was there. So it's not. I mean, I'm not reducing the pain of that family. Obviously, we understand the pain of the family, but I mean, you can find this. I mean, I would tell you that on a average day, आजकल तो COVID की वजह से नहीं है. Just go outside Tata Cancer Hospital and you'll see the tragedy of India, where cancer patients are literally, camping all night outside that hospital. And it's a horrifying scene. So, I mean, I don't know what else to say. Ashish, you have anything else to add?
I don't know, Kushal. See, the thing is that if you say that India has failed because even a single person has died and India has failed, see, that is a extreme logic to apply, or extreme, let's say, precondition to apply to judge success, right? I mean, there's no country in the world which has suffered. Countries which have got much more resources than us have also suffered, and suffered in the worst way in some cases, right? In fact, I would say, we had discussed this question on one of your previous podcasts, that Indian society actually came together very strongly as a response, right? And I mean, forget the government part of it and forget the state government, central government, all of that. But just look at the social response, right? Like during the first lockdown, people were helping each other from social media. People were, there were camps putting out on the roads when the migrants were going back. There were camps for food distribution, water, all of that, right? See, India as a society is very anti-fragile in that sense. People come together and the reason is that our state machinery is not very strong, so people have to fend for themselves, right? So and not only do they fend for themselves, they also have the kindness to help others also. Even now, I mean, I can say myself, I have tagged literally dozens of cases for help in the first wave, not so much second. I mean, second is more medical, so I don't have that many medical connects. But even now, any politician you tag, you typically get a response. There was a case. I don't want to name any politicians because it's not public. But and this is across party lines, by the way. There are at least three parties involved, three different political parties involved here. I messaged them directly or in a few cases. The response was phenomenal. And no one asked us to say, what is tumhara political inclination kya hai? Who's this guy? What is their political inclination? Nothing like that. They responded pretty much straight away. They got their teams involved and solved the problem. And I mean, it's also in Maharashtra, MP, where I have got connections. So I think the overall, people have come together to do what you can do. I mean, the fact is it's a once in a lifetime, hopefully once in a lifetime pandemic. And the resources in every country has been strained. So yes, I mean, every death is a tragedy. And and the pictures which you see, I mean, all of us in our own personal lives would have gone through those tragedies in different contexts. So obviously, every tragedy, is personal for the individual. But in a public response sense, you have to be slightly more, let's say, impersonal here and say or unemotional and say that okay, what was your resources available versus what is the response, right? I mean, rather than looking at an isolated one instance and say that okay, because I was moved by one picture, I would say that the whole country has failed. That I think is not probably the right way to judge a public health
No,
crisis.
but I think there is a fair criticism, and this is nothing. I think from top to bottom, everybody is to be blamed in India. I refrain from criticizing the government, state, and center. If people remember, I was not criticizing the Mahavikas Agadi during the first wave. I was like, I'm not going to say anything. I'm not going to say anything is because this is a completely new virus and we are overwhelmed. But now we had a year. We knew what we are dealing with. We could have envisaged some things that were going to happen and maybe stocked up accordingly. Was it going to be adequate? It never is adequate, but that does not mean it could not have been better. And I think all governments, whether state or center, getting the flack right now because of high flow oxygen beds that are not available, even just oxygen not being available, and shortage of remdesivir. And I thought the statement by the health minister was leaving a lot to be desired for. And these are my opinions, these are not Ashish's opinions, so I just want to clarify that. I was very disappointed by the way it was happening. But anyways, Munish has said, I'm in New Zealand, my mother is in India, and she kept on procrastinating over the vaccine. But during the broadcast, I tried emotional blackmail again, what I was saying, and it seems to have worked this time. So Manish, I'm very happy, and I'm announcing this right now because मुझे खुशी हुई है कि if your mom has agreed. But yeah, this has been a problem. But I want to talk about something which that I've been observing. Both Ashish and I are from Maharashtra, which is a little bit under the pump right now. But I found something very interesting. There has been vaccination going on in Mumbai, and there has been vaccination going on in Pune, right?
Yeah.
Now, there is, again, I want to show the data so that people understand what the hell am I talking about. And first, I will put up Mumbai and the last 30 days, cut short, because this has hurt me as a Mumbaikar. Ashish can smile कि Pune has taken over. But yeah, this really hurt. What the hell is happening with us in Mumbai? 50,000, 46,000, 43,000. And look at this. The only day we've had the highest number of doses was 64,000. Now, this is 19 lakhs 23,000, right? And this obviously is Mumbai city. So, Ashish, the population is around 1.25 crores, right? That is the population estimated. And now we look at Pune. And this is where my heart breaks. पुणे ने हमारी ले ली है 59.
Our highest was 79 actually one of the days. I'll tell you one experience, Kushal, and going back to my previous point on how society comes together. Pune has this Pune platform for COVID relief. Okay, there's a platform where civic society, organizations, I mean, entrepreneurs, businessmen, politicians of all parties, IS officers, they're all part of that platform. RSS is there, other NGOs are also there. People are working tirelessly to raise funds to get hospitals the requisite HFNOs, the ventilators, the oxygen arrangements. And there's a gentleman by the name of Sudhir Mehta. You should follow him on Sudhir Mehta Pune on Twitter. Absolutely phenomenal work by that one person. I mean, he has taken the lead in terms of coordinating the relief operations for the Pune city as a whole. And I mean, Pune city meaning Pune PMC and PCMC. Pune has got two municipal corporations. So tons of data he's crunching every day. Amazing passion in terms of getting the industry together. I'm a part of the industry group where people are donating ventilators and other equipments every day. I see like 10, 15 messages saying this company has donated 2 lakh worth of equipment, 5 lakh worth of equipment. Absolutely phenomenal response. And I think I'm really proud of the Pune data because I'll give you one more color to this. Pune, as an estimate, has got 33 lakhs, or I mean, some estimates at 28 lakhs. So let's say 30 lakh people who are eligible for vaccination in the current categories which are open. Pune is already past 16 lakhs, will be past 16 lakhs today. So we would have done 50% one dose. And at the speed that we are going, we will finish off the entire vaccination by end of June, definitely. I mean, it could be earlier also, but definitely end of June. 1 month before the government timeline, the target which has been given to the country. So Pune will, and there are already the demands that Pune will ask for more relaxed criteria based on that, right? The fact that we have done well on the first part.
That is something I wanted to ask you as a follow-up question using the Mumbai-Pune analogies, because if Pune reaches its criteria, तो भाई पुणेकरों ने क्या गुनाह किया है, उनको तो relax करो ना.
Yeah, absolutely. That should definitely happen. I mean, why should we twiddle our thumbs for a month waiting for others to catch up, right? But we have done our job. We should get the priority, definitely.
And not only that, what I was disturbed about another case was, look at Delhi. Delhi is also doing very well. Yeah, Delhi's numbers daily are like, Delhi is also far higher than us. I mean, I don't know. Look, I was like someone, who has a lot of Mumbai pride and Mumbai number one. हम लोग IPL भी सबसे ज़्यादा जीते हैं.
So just as an additional information, the 3 states which have done very well are Rajasthan, Gujarat, and Maharashtra.
Yeah.
UP is just caught up. UP has also gone past 1 crore. Of course, their population is much more. It's 25 crores almost. So they will take some more effort, but they've also caught up. So those are the 4 states which are leading in terms of the numbers currently in vaccination. Several other states, I really don't know what's going on. I mean, there are several states which are really doing very, very badly. They haven't even got to. I mean, when Pune is at 50%, there are cities and states which are at 20%, which is not good local push, basically, right? I mean, central government will only do so much in these cases. You have to have the local push coming in from society, from civic society, from local politicians. That hasn't happened.
Yeah, I guess it is true. So I don't know, man. It's just I'm so happy for Pune as of now, and I'm so disappointed with Mumbai and BMC. I don't know what's wrong. It's heartbreaking, because look, at the end of the day, for the Indian economy, I'm not saying this that our life is more valuable than the life of someone in Imphal, but the point is, for the country's health, our metro cities need to be vaccinated ASAP. We need to come up with solutions fast, because if the economy suffers, we have like 10-year problems in that case. So I don't know what's going to happen, but I guess we've covered up pretty much everything. But again, before we wrap up today's discussion, I just got a message from a doctor, and we are talking about vaccination. So again, I want to share some positive news. So I just got this message on Twitter. So small numbers but encouraging data from Nasik. 150 people, 1 vaccine dose taken, who contacted COVID, age 70%, over 60, 25%, 45 to 60, all 150 recovered, 125 at home, 25 hospitalizations, 5 severe symptoms, no family members infected. I repeat, no family member infected. This is wonderful data. I know it's a small sample size, but I'm telling you, people, the vaccines work. Even when it comes to transmission of COVID, the vaccines reduce the transmission significantly. Do not listen to Anthony Fauci. उसकी बीवी उसको घर में बहुत मारती है. मेरे को नहीं मालूम उसकी लाइफ में क्या प्रॉब्लम है. उसकी बीवी बहुत मार रही है आजकल उसको. वो साला रोज आता है, बोलता है मेरी बीवी मेरे को घर पे डराती है, मैं तुमको डराएगा टीवी में आके. So on that positive note, Ashish, if there's is there anything else you'd like to add?
No, I think we covered a good ground, Kushal. I just hope that some of the bickering reduces, right? I mean, there will obviously be shortfalls. We are in an unprecedented crisis. This has never happened before, and I hope this never happens again. So I think some of the bickering which we see on social media about आपने ये नहीं बोला, वो word use क्यों किया, I think some of it I just hope reduces, and we also appreciate our scale and what we are achieving, right? To give you a perspective, when we would have covered the first lot of vaccinated people, which is 33 crores, we would have vaccinated all of US in the same time frame, one extra month, maybe 1.5 extra month. Then US would have taken to vaccinate about 80% of their population, whatever the eligible number there is, 80-90%, right? So we would have, and by the way, they are 34x our per capita income, which is like a proxy for resources which you have, right? So with our healthcare system, which by the way is always burdened, even then we would have matched US step by step, which is no mean deal. I mean, look at the data before you feel bad about Indian situation. Look at the data in other countries. Look at Germany, look at France, look at Italy, look at Japan. They are failing. They are like, you can see on Twitter, like people are saying that someone went for an appointment and they've got an appointment 2 months later or 40 days later, or things like that. So yes, I mean, there are always shortcomings, and as Kushal said, you can always do everything better. But that's not really, I mean, there should be a limit of being self-critical and self-flogging, right? You should know what we are achieving in the course of being imperfect. I mean, imagine if we were perfect, which of course no country is. But with this imperfection of ours and with so much bickering which goes on because of the various divides which we have, even with all of that taking into account, we are doing something phenomenal, which should be like a case study of how a country like India is achieving this, right? So I think that would be my closing remark.
All right. So just before I go, so Augusta has put this question, devil's advocate. Would you climb a plane with 10 in a million chance of crash in 1 million? Augusta, my answer is give me 10 crore रुपया, मैं पक्का करूंगा. 10 crore देता है तो बोल, मैं करने को तैयार हूं, क्योंकि मुझे मालूम है मेरी प्रोबेबिलिटी मरने की बहुत कम है, और मेरी प्रोबेबिलिटी मरने की कम है, और मेरा टाइम लिमिटेड है. तो अगर मेरा टाइम चाहते हो तो गिव मी 10 crore रुपया, मैं करता हूं. 10 crore मैं करूंगा. August, I'll give you many things. I know many such people, especially in America, and my friends, my university friends, they would rope walk from one building to the other. They would bungee jump from, the top of a mountain cliff. They would, I know, because what Augusta is saying कि तुम बोलते हो कोविड का fear क्यों है, तो मैं तुम्हें उल्टा बता रहा हूं. I know people who would skydive, but they're scared of COVID. So Augusta, my dear friend, that is your answer. People are always going to be scared of things that they don't understand. In the case of COVID, it's very simple. I wrote an article about this. It is about the availability heuristic, which Kahneman talks about. And within the availability heuristic, it is something called the availability bias. And even within that, you want to talk about it. So these are my closing comments. I wrote an article recently called about the Olympics of death. आजकल ये हो गया है कि आपको फोन आता है, अनफॉर्चुनेटली किसी की मृत्यु हो गई है, somebody has passed away. आपका रिएक्शन क्या होना चाहिए? आजकल ये हो रहा है इंडिया में. Your first reaction should actually be, that's so sad that person passed away. You know what most people are doing these days? क्या रीजन से मरा? It's as if, they have to figure out, did he die of COVID? If he died of COVID, I'm supposed to feel bad about him. If he did not die of COVID, अरे वो तो रेगुलर में है यार, हार्ट अटैक से भी मरते हैं लोग, रोड अटैक से भी मरते हैं लोग, डायरिया से भी मरते हैं लोग. So it's ridiculous what is happening. Augusta, I'm someone who has been wearing a mask almost 10 to 11 hours daily, because unlike many people who have the privilege of working from home, I don't. So I wear a proper N95 mask and even a face shield. I know what it is. I take all precautions. But yeah, beyond the point, I don't buy the fear porn, Agastya. And so these numbers don't make any sense. If you personally have asked me whether I would, well, give me 10 crore rupees, I would go on that plane. मेरे को क्या जाए, मेरे को मालूम है मेरे मरने के chances कम है, मैं 10 crore ले लूंगा, मेरे को कोई problem नहीं है. बाकी, I will leave you guys for today. Once again, Ashish, thanks a lot for coming on the chat. As always, it's a pleasure talking to you.
No, thanks, Kushal, and talk soon.
Yeah. So, guys, let's wrap up today's discussion. Once again, thanks a lot for watching the podcast or listening to the podcast, whatever whichever medium you are tuned into. Please support the Charvak podcast. Like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel, or subscribe to Spotify, wherever you guys are. Leave a comment wherever you are. And if you want to support the podcast, please become a member on YouTube or subscriber on Patreon. You can buy the podcast merch, or you can send your donations through UPI. I'll see you guys next time with another interesting discussion. Until then, namaste, take care, goodbye.